Okay, so we're on section 3.2, and I'm going to record just the demonstrations. We're going to start with JavaScript, and then I'll stop, and then I'll start it up again when I talk about the box model. Okay, so as I was saying, I used to teach JavaScript using Google Slides, but I kept having problems with trying to kind of keep the links between my demos and the live demos working. And it was even a bigger pain with PHP because you cannot inspect the source of a PHP file because it's all executed on the server. JavaScript is a little better, but there's still a million problems. And one of those is this. And who had this problem? Was it Isaac? Yeah. On Monday, were you the one that had the smart quote, dumb quote problem? Yeah. So, okay, so anytime you type inside of an RTF document, and RTF stands for rich text format. If you type in an RTF document, it will convert your keystroke to a smart quote. And so that's what it looks like on the top left, the cat. And you can see it's a curly quote, right? And so if you copy and paste that into your code out of a Google Doc, out of a rich text document, out of really the web page, any web page is a rich text document, then you get this business down here at the bottom. And you can see in the Atom formatting, and here's my JS hints linter telling me this is causing a syntax error, and it's right there. I can see that the color is not being read correctly. Smart quotes do not work in any code language, in any programming language or markup language. They'll always break everything. And unless you pay attention, practice, don't copy and paste from the web and watch for these. You'll spend way too much time dealing with them. So watch out for those. If you just type inside of any plain text code editor, it'll be a dumb quote. So dumb quote's good, smart quote's bad. All right? Watch out for those. Anyway, you'll see that most of these slides are hidden. The ones that are hidden, I've slowly been converting to, they're over here. Oh, I guess I'll just click the link. I've slowly been converting to into a GitHub repo, and I'm using a slide generator. It generates from markup files, and it's pretty slick. It's got and I can do find and replace, which is like the thing that I hate the most about using any Google product. That I can't edit the source code of my stuff, and I can't do like a find and replace all the links. Because I'm about to break them all because I need to reorganize something because the web tech changed again. Okay, so anyway, we are going to talk about JavaScript. We already talked about how to put it in your page using a script tag in the page or a script tag to link to an external file with the source attribute. We're going to talk about expressions, statements, and operators. If you've never programmed before, these are the foundations of programming. If you have programmed before and you've never kind of gone through this exercise, I think you're going to find it very helpful. So first of all, this is a high-level view of what programming is. You're just writing instructions. It's the same way you list directions or the steps to follow in a recipe. You're just listing instructions. And when you do that, almost every computer piece of software has these components that I list on the left. You have the flow, right? And that's the order by which the statements are executed. Line 1, line 2, line 3, just like HTML documents have a flow. And then state. So state is the status of the data, usually stored in variables and objects, that you store using your programming language. You store them in the cache, in the browser, in the memory of the computer, somewhere. That's how you keep track of what's happening in your program. And so if we look at this example, the how to turn a lamp on program, you can see that variables keep track of the state. Right now we have a variable called lamp is on, and it's set to false. This program has 3 variables, 2 of which need to be true before the light will turn on. So how do we look and see if it's true? How do we build decisions into our program? Logic. So if the bulb works, if that evaluates as true, and this is an operator that lets us check the value of 2 or more. So if both of these are true, meaning if everything in this is true, then this will turn, then we can turn the light on. So even if I replace the bulb and try to turn on the lamp, it won't turn on because both of these are not evaluating as true. So our logic is an important part of the program. Functions are collections of statements that can run together, right? So when I turn the lamp on, it's doing several things, and there's several lines of code that I can call many times by listening for an event, like when users click a button, when data is updated, etc. So once I replace the bulb and plug in the lamp, these two things are true, and now I can turn the lamp on and off, right? And so that's a high-level view of basically every piece of software. They all have these things, right? And so your job is to write code to manage these things, to manage the state, to make decisions based on what you want it to do, using logic, and to listen for events. Now, there's a lot of other stuff that's not in this, but this is the high-level view. So programming is that. So we already talked about how JavaScript can run on any web browser. And one of the things I really like about this format for slides is that I can open the source, I can open the JavaScript console right here, and I can copy and paste directly from here without having to click once, select the right object, accidentally get a smart quote, and then have to retype everything. So instead, I can just go over here, copy, paste, and run it right here. Okay. Ideally, I could execute it with a button, but that would be like another job. Okay, so let's talk about the data types of JavaScript. First of all, it's a loosely typed language. So unlike Java, unlike C#, unlike all the other C languages, which require you to say, this is going to be an integer, this is going to be a string, JavaScript, all of its primitive values can be classified basically here. Booleans for true and false, numbers, which include all integers, all floating point values, all doubles, and strings, right? We'll talk about these trivial non-values later. But for now, that's really all you need to know about. These are the collections of multiple objects and values. And we will, of course, talk about those. So data has both a value and a type. The value of this chunk of data right here is true. The type is that it's a Boolean, right? And that's important to know about if you're learning JavaScript, whether you already know how to program, perhaps especially if you already know how to program, because JavaScript is not gonna, strict typing, when you have to make and like identify the type of data you use, helps you program because you don't make accidents, right? Because your functions require certain types of data. And here, JavaScript does a lot of inferring, right? So here we have some Booleans. Here we have some numbers. Like I said, floating points and integers are still numbers. Here we have some strings, right? These are strings. I know they're strings because they're wrapped in quotes. That's a double quote. You can wrap a single quote. Or as Genesis, this is the backtick. It's called a string literal, and it's my favorite one because you can write multiple lines. You can include line breaks in them, and you can also do templating with them, with curly braces and dollar signs. So, and here are some examples of an array, a JavaScript object, and a constructor for the JavaScript date object. So an expression is what we're going to start with, and we're going to start typing into the console. And so an expression is any unit of code that resolves to a value, right? So it's the fundamental, everything you do will be basically managing the data that you've stored in your program, right? And so you can do this with operators or math or logic or anything else, right? So let's start with the most simple thing, right? So if I put into a JavaScript interpreter, and I can use the console here, or I can open up the terminal, and I can, if you have Node installed, which is basically like JavaScript on the command line and for servers, you can run these also in Node. And so if I have a piece of data and I put it into JavaScript to evaluate, it's going to run it as an expression. And so if you just put data in, you'll get data back out. And that's the same, these two consoles, the JavaScript engines are basically the same. And so if you and that's the same for any data. And so that's technically an expression, but usually expressions are data being transformed. And here I'm going to use an operator to transform the data. So 12 times 12 is going to evaluate that and spit back out the result, right? Okay, so if you use something called the type of operator, you can get the type of the data. So if I say type of 12, it's a number. I can also wrap it inside of parentheses, and I can run basically an expression, 12 times 12, and then have type of run a new expression using the return value of 12 times 12. And I can do that with other types of operators, like the comparison operator. The comparison operator is always going to return a Boolean, but the type of is always going to return a string, right? You can see the two quotes, so I can do something with that too, right? And then here's an equality operator, okay? If I took that out, it's going to return the actual value of that data, right? So a comparison operator will give me a Boolean that says it's true or false, and an arithmetic operator will do the math and return a number. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so we have inequality operators. If we have equal, then we also have, so this is false, but this is true because it's evaluating the expression and returning the result. So the result of this being not equal is actually that is true. That's a true statement. This is important right here. This kind of boring talk so far kind of culminates here. The strict equality operator in JavaScript exists only in JavaScript and nowhere else, and you use it like this. All right, what is the value? What is going to be the value, the return value of this expression right here? Who knows the answer?
False.
False, why?
Because one's a number, the other's a string.
Right. The strict equality operator returns, it compares the value and the type, right? So the value on the left is 1, and the value on the right is 1, but the types are different. And so what it's doing is that it's going to, if you don't use the comparison operator or the strict comparison operator, it will convert one of those. It'll do what's called implicit data conversion, and it will convert one of those. And so you write a program and you are comparing things, and all of a sudden your program's not working right. And it may be because you're either expecting things to be the same value and type, or you're not expecting them to be the same value and type, right? And so you can do the same thing here. 1 equals true. This ate me up for years in PHP until I finally realized what was going on. 1 equals true. Well, philosophically, as far as computers go, everything's binary, zeros and ones, 1 0 is false, true, et cetera, right? But if you're writing code, then you got to know that difference right there, especially JavaScript. And that's why we have the strict comparison operator. That's why it's there, basically because we don't have type in JavaScript. Okay, cool. So if you combine expressions, JavaScript evaluates each in the appropriate order, right? Using the parentheses, just like in arithmetic. So this is going to be false, which is a Boolean, and we know that. So what's the answer to this one? What's this going to return then? String, right? Because it's the value that type of returns. Cool. So now let's go to statements. And a statement is an instruction that performs a specific action, like a sentence. You need punctuation. I recommend you always use semicolons. There will be some gotchas if you forget. You can get away with it, but occasionally, especially if you're writing kind of like you know, if you're new to writing code or new to writing JavaScript, you might run into some problems. There are some people who will like, you know, like always, I mean, people who write books who will say you don't need semicolons in JavaScript, but then they'll always note that there are cases where you can mess up if you don't. Okay, so this statement uses an assignment operator, the equal sign, and a variable declaration, right? It says let, which is like code for var. You could also say var here. And greeting is going to be the name of a variable. Equals is going to assign the value of hello into there. And so by all practical purposes, greeting equals a string value named hello. So if I come over here and I say let greeting, oh, hello. I did that this morning. Let greeting equal hello, and then I do greeting, and there it is. There's the value. If I do type of greeting, there's the type. And because JavaScript is because the string and all data types in JavaScript are technically objects, they have a series of things you can do on them. So because it's a string, I can get the length of it. Excuse me, yeah, length. I can get the length. I can run, there are methods and properties built into that data type. So greeting.length tells me the length of it. And it's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Got it? However, if I do this, 0. You can also treat strings like arrays. And so the 0 is the first index of the string hello. Cool. All right, so we're going to do the exercises on the next page, and then we'll talk about them and see if there are any questions, and then we'll move on. So here they are. Just some example expressions. There are links there on the left if you want to like learn why these are working. But just go through these, and you can copy and paste if you want. And just try to guess what each one's going to be. If you're positive, you're 100% positive you know it, then skip it, go to the next one. But after you like test some of them and make sure you know what these are doing. And they get increasingly more complicated, and we're going to talk about them. But just jump into them, and we'll see what happens. Do them with a partner if you like.